I realized the stars above me were moving in the same direction as my car. At first I blamed fatigue. The road had been empty for so long that my eyes had begun to invent company. Phantom taillights blooming and dying in the distance, the suggestion of hills where the land stayed stubbornly flat. The dashboard clock glowed a tired red. The radio offered only static and the occasional breath of a voice that never finished a word. I loosened my grip on the wheel and tilted my head back against the seat, letting the darkness press in through the windshield. The stars slid, just a little, as I passed a mile marker. Not streaking like meteors, not drifting like clouds. They kept their careful distances from one another, constellations intact, all of them inching west with me. I laughed once, too loud in the sealed car. Perspective, parallax, that was the word. Things moved when you moved. It meant nothing. Still, I checked the side mirror, then the rear view. The sky behind me was wrong in a different way, emptier, as if something had been erased where I'd already driven. The road cut a narrow tunnel through scrub and low rock. No towns, no exits. I tried to remember the last sign I'd passed and couldn't. The engine hummed steadily, a sound I felt in my teeth. With each mile, the sense of being alone thickened, like fog you couldn't see but had to breathe. I tested the thought by slowing down. The speedometer needle dipped. The stars slowed too. My stomach tightened. I pulled onto the shoulder and stopped. Gravel crunched under the tires, and then there was only the engine ticking as it cooled. Above me, the stars halted, suspended as neatly as pins in black felt. The silence pressed so hard it seemed to bow the windshield inward. When I put the car back in gear, they followed. I told myself it was coincidence layered on coincidence, the kind that only happens when you're exhausted and afraid to admit it. I turned the radio off completely and rolled the window down. Night air rushed in, smelling of dust and something faintly metallic. The darkness beyond the shoulder felt crowded, like a held breath. After another stretch of driving, I noticed patterns. Not the familiar ones you learn as a child, but new alignments that only existed while I moved. Lines of light forming subtle arrows. A slow spiral directly overhead that tightened the faster I went. I pressed the accelerator, heart hammering, and the spiral cinched, stars whispering against one another in a way I felt rather than heard. A sign appeared ahead, its reflective surface flaring white in my headlights. I expected a town name, a distance, anything human. Instead, there was only a number, 20. The font was plain, municipal, the kind meant to be glanced at and forgotten. I passed it and the sky shifted, a fraction of a degree, as if acknowledging the count. By 21, the stars had sunk lower, no longer content to stay politely distant. They seemed closer, brighter, their cold light frosting the hood of the car. Shadows sharpened. Every movement felt observed, measured. I tried to turn around. The road behind me looked the same, but when I crossed the center line, the wheel fought back, a subtle resistance that grew until my arms ached. I stayed my lane, breathing shallowly, telling myself roads don't choose. The signs kept counting. 22, 23. Each one brought a change I couldn't explain away. The horizon bowing inward, the sky dimpling like skin under pressure, the sense that I was being carried rather than driving. The engine note deepened, not strained but eager, as if the car recognized where it was going. At 27, I noticed the stars no longer matched any sky I knew. The familiar anchors were gone. In their place were clusters that suggested depth, layers upon layers receding into an impossible dark. When I blinked, afterimages lingered too long, as if my eyes were reluctant to let go. I pulled over again, hands shaking. The air outside tasted wrong now, thin, sharp, carrying a distant vibration that set my bones humming. I looked straight up. The stars above me were not lights. They were apertures. I don't know how I understood that, only that the certainty landed fully formed in my chest. Each point was an opening, and beyond them something moved in slow, patient currents. When I took a step away from the car, the ground sloped subtly toward the road, like the world itself was tilted to guide me back. I stumbled, grabbed the door, and the car shuddered as if relieved. I was crying without noticing, tears cooling on my cheeks. The thought came unbidden and terrible. I had not been watching the sky move with me. The sky had been matching itself to my speed. Back on the road, the signs came faster. 30, 31. The numbers blurred. The radio flickered on by itself. No static now, just a low, layered sound that reminded me of wind moving through vast spaces. I glimpsed motion at the edges of the windshield, not shapes, not forms, just the implication of scale. At 34, the road began to rise. Not a hill, but a gentle, continuous incline that lifted the car and my stomach with it. The stars crowded closer, their apertures widening. I had the absurd urge to dim my headlights so I wouldn't offend them. The twist came quietly, without spectacle. At 36, I saw my own taillights ahead of me, receding at exactly my speed. Understanding unfolded like a bruise. The emptiness behind me wasn't erasure. It was completion. The road was not a line but a loop being laid down as I drove it. Each mile a stitch. The numbers weren't distances. They were iterations. I had been here before. Not in memory, deeper than that, in whatever part of me responded when the car's hum matched the vibration in the air. Each pass tightened the spiral overhead. Each circuit aligned the apertures more precisely. At 39, the road leveled out. The sky pressed low, heavy with openings. I could feel a tension now, vast and impersonal, the way a tide regards a shoreline. The car began to slow on its own, engine easing, content. The final sign loomed, reflective surface swallowing my headlights. 40. Beyond it, the road ended. Not in a cliff or a barrier, but in a mirror of sky laid flat, stars beneath my tires moving in perfect synchrony. I understood then that the direction had never been mine. As the car rolled forward and the world tipped gently up to meet me, the last thing I saw was the night folding closed, the apertures winking out one by one, until there was only a single point of light ahead, waiting for me to finish the count. I didn't brake at first. My foot hovered, waiting for my body to catch up to what my eyes were insisting on. The road was empty, straight as a thought you don't want to finish. Headlights cut a pale corridor through the dark, illuminating asphalt that looked damp even though it hadn't rained in hours. Trees crowded the shoulders, their branches knitting together overhead, turning the sky into something narrow and distant. Then the shape resolved. A small figure stood exactly between the yellow lines, feet together, hands folded in front of her like she was posing for a school photo. She wore a light dress that didn't move in the wind my car should have been making. Her hair hung neatly, too neatly, framing a face that was calm in a way that made my stomach drop. She smiled. I slammed the brakes. Tires screamed. The car shuddered and lurched, headlights flaring as the beam washed over her. And through her, there was no impact, no resistance, just a brief, nauseating overlap, like two images failing to align. The road beyond her appeared instantly, uninterrupted, as if she had never been there at all. The car stopped sideways across the lane. My chest hurt. My hands were locked around the wheel so tightly my fingers buzzed. I twisted in my seat, looking back through the rear window. She stood behind me now, untouched, still smiling. I whispered something I don't remember, maybe her name, maybe my own. When I drove again, it was slow, crawling, every sense stretched thin. I checked the mirrors constantly, half expecting her to be seated in the back, legs dangling, humming to herself. But the car remained empty, filled only with the smell of hot rubber and my own breath. The road sign ahead reflected my headlights. 20. The number made no sense here. There hadn't been a countdown when I'd turned onto this road. I would have remembered. Still, as I passed it, the sign seemed to hum faintly, a vibration I felt through the steering wheel. The radio crackled on by itself. At first it was just static. Then a sound beneath it, soft, rhythmic. A child counting under her breath. I shut it off. The silence that followed was worse, thick and listening. The trees pressed closer. The darkness beyond the shoulders felt intentional, as if the world had decided not to render anything I didn't absolutely need. I saw her again at 19. This time she stood closer to the shoulder, head tilted, watching me approach. My headlights passed through her chest, her legs, her smiling face, and for a split second I saw something else layered inside her outline. A blur of red and white, shattered glass, a wheel spinning freely. Memory rose up without permission. I was 17. It was raining harder than it had any right to. I was late, angry, driving too fast on a road I thought I knew. There had been a flash of movement, a scream swallowed by impact, the horrible, hollow feeling of the car going light as if it had driven over nothing at all. I had told myself I must have imagined it. There was no body, no report, no blood on the hood, just a cracked headlight and mud on the bumper. I never came back. Until now. At 18, the child stood closer still. Her smile hadn't changed, but I understood it better now. It wasn't joy. It was patience. She wasn't following me. She was waiting for me to arrive. The signs kept counting down. With each number, the road subtly reshaped itself, curves smoothing out, landmarks aligning with a certainty that made my skin prickle. I recognized this place not as it was, but as it had been that night, before the trees grew wild again, before time tried to cover its tracks. At 15, I tried to turn around. The wheel resisted, gently at first, then firmly, as if my hands were pushing against something solid and unyielding. The road ahead remained open. The road behind me, blurred, details smearing together until it looked unfinished. I laughed then, a thin, broken sound. "I'm sorry," I said to the empty car, to the listening dark. "I didn't know." The child appeared directly in front of the hood at 12. The car passed through her again, and this time the overlap lingered. The interior filled with the scent of wet asphalt and copper. My ears rang with the echo of a horn I hadn't heard in years. Her eyes met mine. They were not accusing. They were expectant. I understood the reason for her intangibility then. She wasn't a ghost trapped between worlds, doomed to replay a moment. She was a marker, a remainder, something left behind to ensure that what had happened reached its destination. I was that destination. At 10, the road dipped, headlights revealing a familiar bend. The one I had taken too fast. The one where the world had briefly failed to stop me. The child stood at the apex of the curve now, smile wider, brighter, illuminated from within by the same pale light as the signs. As I approached, her outline grew sharper, more defined. She was becoming solid. Or I was becoming something else. I didn't try to stop this time. At 1, the road ended where it always had, at the exact point my memory refused to cross. My headlights washed over the child one final time, and they didn't pass through. She stepped forward, small hand lifting, not to stop me but to guide me. Her smile finally changed, not into something cruel, but into something relieved. As the car rolled into the dark beyond the bend, I caught a last glimpse of the road behind me in the mirror. Empty, unmarked, as if it had never needed to remember it all. Ahead, the child waited, no longer smiling because she didn't have to,